Okay, listen. I know Fighter is gonna get a rework in the upcoming update that's gonna come out with the Marionette, which I'm definitely gonna make a video on about. But this video is just gonna talk about how the Fighter in its current state is by far the best survivor in the game, and I'd even argue he's OP. So in the first part of this video, I'm just going to be discussing on why I think Fighter's OP and why his abilities make him busted and overpowered compared to the other survivors. And second half, or the second thing I'm going to talk about is my opinion on the possible rework that he could have, and to make him more balanced and make it more fair in the game. Okay, into my first point about what makes him so good, I want to talk about his parries that allow him to get swings, that allow him to get charges for the swings. It's a pretty weird system, and how you can parry and then you instantly get a swing. I think it should be a cooldown, because if you're good at parrying and you're good at swing, and you just combine those two, it's just impossible to kill you, unless you have a sweaty ass killer on you. But other than that, you can't really die. You can always there's various techs that you can do with him. You can just, it's not really a tech, but you can go in front of someone and just body block. You can just body block them and then parry. Then you have another swing that you can do that's a different time in a different scenario, where you can just swing at him instead of having to wait and parry him. And this goes for every single killer. One of the most surprising techs that I found online, or from a certain video, that you can swing whenever Mimic's drilling. So if you don't have time to outmaneuver him when he's drilling, because it's super hard, you can just swing, gain invulnerability, and just run away. That's pretty busted. You can just completely negate his drill mode by just swinging, getting invulnerability, and running away. And that's just for the Mimic. But for Springtrap, if he's doing his charge move, you could just parry it. It's so easy to parry. And even if he tries to move out of the way, he's gonna have to turn all the way around and go and hit you. And that turn has such a god-awful radius that you can just run away, just like how you did with Mimic. And it applies the exact same to Ennard. If he tries using his grab move, you can just parry and you get a new charge. And then with that charge, you can just annoy the hell out of Ennard. And for my, possible reworks for Fighter is changing how you get charges / swings. I think it should be more of a cooldown system, and you can even experiment with making his parry cooldown longer, because then you would no longer have to rely on having to parry to gain charges to swing. And I feel like if you could try that out. It might not work, but I assume they have testers. It's a pretty big game. But I have seen the play. I might talk about the player count slowly dwindling, but I feel like this is natural for any new game that comes out. It's eventually just gonna even out. I'm getting off track, but that's my main idea for the rework for Fighter. Removing the necessity for having to parry to get charges and replacing it with a cooldown on the swing ability Q, and maybe even if that's if you can't really find like a good cooldown to have, maybe just keep the cooldown after you use it in between them, but just remove the necessity for parrying, and then you could alternately add a longer cooldown to parry. And okay, yes, I kind of just said the same thing like twice, but I feel like that would be a good rework. They might change it, They might do something else. They might just completely rework it. But but I feel like as of right now, if you were just to keep those two and keep his HP and keep everything else, I feel like that's the most balanced state that you could put him in. Or maybe I'm wrong. I'm always open to criticism, but that's just my opinion, and I'm just gonna let the rest of this gameplay or round play out.